Have you ever wondered if your body is still capable of deep, intense pleasure after 60? I am not talking about something mild or occasional. I am talking about the kind of pleasure that builds from the inside, waves that take over your whole body. Today, I am going to show you exactly why that is not only still possible for you, it is actually more within reach now than it was at 30, and I am going to give you the exact 3-step method to get there. Here is the one thing I need you to hear before we go any further. Everything you feel right now, the dryness, the reduced sensation, the sense that your body has changed, none of that means pleasure is gone. It means your body needs a different approach, a smarter approach, one that works with who you are today, not who you were 20 years ago. That is exactly what this video is. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly where your G-spot is, why it is more physically accessible now than it was at 30, and the precise 3-step method for stimulating it effectively at this stage of your life. Not theory, not vague suggestions. A specific, anatomically grounded, step-by-step method designed around how your body actually works right now, today, at 60 or 65 or 70. Stay with me, because what I am about to share changes the conversation completely. Hello, I am Dr. William Harrison, a gynecologist with over 20 years specializing in women's intimate health after menopause. I have sat across from thousands of women in my clinical practice who came to me carrying the same quiet grief. They did not always say it directly, but underneath every question about dryness or discomfort or loss of desire, there was a deeper question they were almost afraid to ask. Is pleasure still possible for me? Is intensity still something my body is capable of? Or did that part of my life end without anyone telling me it was ending? I want you to write something in the comments right now before we go any further. Write, "I want to know," if you have always been curious about G-spot stimulation but never fully understood or experienced it. Or write, "I used to feel it," if you experienced it at some point in your life, but feel like it has become harder to access. I read every single comment in this community, and your honesty helps me understand exactly what content you need most. You are not alone in this question. You never were. For years, I gave my patients the standard information: hormonal changes, lubricants, basic pelvic floor exercises. And while all of that has genuine value, I kept noticing something that the standard script did not account for. Women in their 60s and 70s who had never experienced a G-spot orgasm in their younger years were, under the right guidance, experiencing it for the first time. And women who had experienced it occasionally in their 30s and 40s were accessing it more reliably than ever before. That pattern demanded an explanation. So I went back to the anatomy, and what I found there is what I am sharing with you today. If this is the first time a medical professional has spoken to you this directly about your own pleasure anatomy, please subscribe to this channel right now and turn on the notification bell. This community exists because you deserve complete information about your own body. Let me start with the anatomy, because without it, the 3-step method will not make complete sense. The G-spot, more accurately called the Greffenberg zone, or the anterior vaginal wall complex, is not a button. It is a region of spongy erectile tissue, technically called the urethral sponge, located along the anterior wall of the vagina, the front wall, closest to your belly button, at a depth of approximately 4 to 6 centimeters from the vaginal opening. This tissue is densely innervated, meaning it contains a high concentration of nerve endings. When it receives the right kind of stimulation, firm, rhythmic pressure rather than light touch, it engorges with blood, swells noticeably, and produces a qualitatively distinct type of pleasure that many women describe as deeper, more full body, and more intense than clitoral stimulation alone. Some women experience what is called female ejaculation during G-spot orgasm, the release of a clear fluid from the periurethral glands that is definitively not urine, regardless of the sensation that sometimes precedes it. Now here is the anatomical truth that changes everything for women over 60. After menopause, the vaginal walls thin. Estrogen withdrawal causes the vaginal epithelium to reduce in thickness from approximately 3 to 4 millimeters to sometimes less than 1 millimeter. This thinning is one of the primary causes of discomfort and dryness, and it deserves to be addressed. But here is what almost nobody mentions about that same thinning. It means the G-spot tissue, which sits just beneath that mucosal lining, is now significantly closer to the vaginal surface than it was at 30 or 40. Think of it this way. Imagine the G-spot as something buried under several layers of fabric. In younger women, those layers are thick and well cushioned. Reaching the tissue beneath requires more depth and more precise pressure. After menopause, those layers thin considerably. The tissue is now closer to the surface. Less depth is required to make contact. Less pressure is needed to create stimulation. In purely anatomical terms, the G-spot is easier to reach after menopause than before it. The second factor is uterine position. With age, the uterus undergoes a slight positional shift within the pelvic cavity. This changes the internal geometry of the vaginal canal, specifically the angle of the anterior wall. In many women after 60, this repositioning creates a more favorable angle for anterior wall stimulation, particularly in positions involving shallower penetration. The third factor is psychological, and it is just as real as the anatomical ones. Study after study in sexual gerontology has documented that women over 60 report significantly lower sexual inhibition and significantly higher capacity for self-directed pleasure-seeking than younger women. They know their bodies better. They have fewer performance anxieties. They are more willing to communicate and guide. And that psychological freedom is not a minor variable in G-spot orgasm. It is arguably the most important one, because G-spot stimulation requires a degree of relaxation that is genuinely difficult for many younger women to access. These three factors, thinner vaginal walls bringing the tissue closer to the surface, shifted uterine position creating more favorable angles, and the psychological liberation that comes with age and self-knowledge, combine to create what I genuinely believe are the optimal conditions for G-spot pleasure. Not despite being over 60. Because of it. Now I want to address the most common reason women in this age group fail to access G-spot stimulation even when they are trying. It is not anatomy, it is technique mismatch. The stimulation approach that works for younger women with thicker vaginal walls is frequently ineffective and sometimes uncomfortable for women after menopause. The depth, the angle, the pressure pattern, and the preparatory protocol all need to be calibrated differently. That calibration is exactly what the three-step method provides. Let me tell you about a patient I will call Catherine. She came to see me at 68, recently widowed and newly in a relationship with a caring partner. He tries, she told me. He has always tried, but we have never been able to find it. And now I feel like we have even less time to figure it out. Catherine had been searching for G-spot stimulation for 4 decades. She had read books, tried various positions. Nothing had reliably produced what those resources described. I spent time with Catherine explaining exactly what I am explaining to you now. The anatomy, the post-menopausal advantage, the technique recalibration. I gave her the 3-step method. 6 weeks later, she came back. She said quietly, "We found it. At 68, we finally found it." I cried. He cried. It was extraordinary. That moment is why I make these videos. Here is the 3-step method. The first step is extended arousal preparation, and I cannot overstate how non-negotiable this is for women over 60. G-spot tissue only becomes fully engorged, accessible, and responsive after substantial arousal. In younger women with higher baseline pelvic blood flow, engorgement occurs relatively quickly. After menopause, with reduced baseline circulation, the process requires more time. A minimum of 15 to 20 minutes of sustained arousal before any direct G-spot stimulation is attempted. This means clitoral stimulation first. Extended, unhurried, pleasurable clitoral stimulation with generous lubrication. Use a water-based lubricant free of glycerin and parabens, applied before you begin and reapplied as needed until you feel genuinely, substantially aroused. The physical indicator you are looking for is a sensation of internal fullness or pressure in the vaginal area. That is the G-spot tissue beginning to engorge with blood and becoming palpable. Only when that sensation is present should you move to step 2. The second step is locating the tissue with the correct technique. Whether exploring solo or with a partner, the mechanics are the same. With clean hands and well-lubricated fingers, insert 1 or 2 fingers into the vagina to a depth of approximately 4 to 5 centimeters, roughly the length from the tip of your finger to your first knuckle. Curl the fingers upward toward the belly button, applying firm, deliberate pressure against the anterior vaginal wall. At this depth and angle, the tissue you are feeling for has a distinct texture compared to the surrounding vaginal wall. In a well-aroused state, which is why step 1 is essential, it will feel noticeably different, slightly ridged, somewhat like the surface of a walnut, and firmer than the tissue around it. When you locate that texture, you have found it. The stimulation motion that works most effectively for post-menopausal anatomy is not the commonly described rapid beckoning motion. That approach, while effective for some younger women, is often too gentle for women after menopause who need firmer, more deliberate pressure. Instead, I recommend what I call the press and hold pattern. Apply firm upward pressure against the tissue, approximately 60 to 70% of the pressure you would use to press a doorbell, and hold that pressure steadily for 3 to 5 seconds. Release slightly. Reapply. This rhythmic press and hold creates a pumping stimulation of the periurethral glands that is significantly more effective than rapid movement for most women in this age group. The third step is managing the initial sensations correctly because this is where most women stop too soon. When G-spot stimulation is working, the first sensation many women experience is a strong urge to urinate. I want to be absolutely clear. That sensation is not a sign that something is wrong. It is not a sign that you need to stop. It is a sign that the stimulation is working. The G-spot tissue wraps around the urethra, and when it becomes engorged and stimulated, it presses on the bladder in a way that triggers the same nerve signals as a full bladder. The sensation is similar, but the cause is completely different. If you stop at that moment, which most women instinctively do, you will miss everything that comes after it. The sensation typically passes within 30 to 60 seconds of continued stimulation, as your nervous system recalibrates and distinguishes the pleasure signal from the bladder signal. What follows is the characteristic G-spot response. A building, wave-like pressure sensation distinctly different from clitoral pleasure, radiating outward from the center of the pelvis, building in slow, powerful waves rather than sharp peaks, and culminating, in women who allow it to fully develop, in an orgasm many describe as the most physically intense experience of their lives. Empty your bladder before beginning. Know that the urge to urinate sensation is temporary and expected. Breathe through it. Continue the press and hold. Give your body permission to move through that transitional sensation into what lies beyond it. I want to address one more thing directly. Many women over 60 feel embarrassed to raise this topic with their partners. They worry about seeming demanding or strange. I want to give you language. You can say, I read that there are specific adjustments that work better for women my age. Can we try something different? That is the entire conversation opener. A partner who loves you will want to understand. You do not need to apologize for knowing your body and wanting to communicate about it. The honest timeline for this method is straightforward. The first 1 to 3 attempts are primarily about location and familiarity. Do not expect an orgasm immediately, and do not interpret its absence as failure. Weeks 2 and 3 typically bring the first clear identification of the tissue and the first experience of the building pressure sensation. Weeks 4 through 6 are where the full response becomes accessible for most women who have been consistent and patient. The variable that matters most is not time. It is consistency and the willingness to move through that initial unfamiliar sensation rather than away from it. Catherine found it at attempt 4. She had searched for 4 decades and found it at attempt 4 using this method. The difference was not anatomy. The difference was not age. The difference was technique calibrated to her actual body at her actual stage of life. Here is your action plan. First, ensure you have a water-based lubricant free of glycerin and parabens. This is the most important physical preparation. Second, commit to a minimum of 15 to 20 minutes of clitoral stimulation before any anterior wall stimulation. Third, use the press and hold pattern rather than rapid movement. Fourth, when the urge to urinate sensation arrives, breathe, continue, and give your body 60 seconds to move through it. Share this video with a woman who has always been curious but never had access to this information presented clearly and medically. Leave me your comment. I want to know, or I used to feel it. And tell me how many years you have been carrying this question. I read every one. I am Dr. William Harrison. Your body's capacity for profound pleasure did not end. It evolved, and now, for the first time, you have the anatomical understanding and the precise technique to meet it exactly where it is.